Africa is just days away from a critical trade deadline with the United States and the future of its participation in the African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA. It all hangs in the balance. In April, US President Donald Trump accused South Africa of bad things and announced a steep 30% tariff on imports. All of that temporarily paused, of course, for 3 months. Now, that grace period does end on July the 9th. Trade and Industry Minister Park Staal has repeatedly said, however, that South Africa must remain in AGOA, but has yet to detail how or what the backup plan is if the country is indeed removed. Vaylen Kirtley has been following proceedings at the post-budget engagement and joins us live now. Vaylen, is it happening? Is it not? The big question marks around AGOA are whether it's actually dead, or perhaps there is a way to resuscitate this deal in order for it to work and still be as helpful as it has been in the past.
Thank you very much, Arabila. Very good afternoon to you and to our viewers. This, of course, is a key agreement, not only for South Africa, but other African trading partners with the United States. However, that announcement by President Trump in April of the steep tariffs across the globe and for South Africa of 30% being suspended thereafter for 90 days placed an urgency on maybe re-looking at how South Africa-USA trade relations will look going forward. You'll remember back on the 20th of May that the Minister of the Department of Trade and Industry presented a new framework to the United States just before President Ramaphosa met with Donald Trump. Well, earlier this week, we saw reports that the US has mooted that framework, which not only tackled the steep tariffs that South Africa are looking at with the extension concluding next week, Wednesday, but also the AGOA agreement. And till now, we do not know what is going to happen when that deadline arrives. In the budget speech earlier that the minister presented before the National Assembly, he explained their international trade agreement as having a butterfly strategy with Africa as the heart, as the body of the butterfly, which may be delicate in form but powerful in motion, with wings stretching out to the west as well as to the east. But what do these things mean? Well, to speak to us a little bit about how an industry that will be severely impacted if AGOA in fact has to change and stop after September, and with the expected tariff deadline looming on Wednesday, is the automotive sector. Rene Motelal joins us now. He is from the National Association of Automotive Components and Allied Manufacturers. Thanks so much for chatting to us. Rene, just how nervous are you about next week, Wednesday?
Vaylen, thanks for having me. Look, I think we've kind of been walking this road for several months and possibly longer. The AGOA has been a discussion for almost 2 years now. So I wouldn't say nervous. However, it is a concern should the existing preferential trade arrangements with the US not continue in some form or the other. So you did reference proposals made to the US administration. We would like to still think that there's still room for South Africa to continue some level of preferential agreement with the US. And I think it's really important to understand that discussions around where it all started with President Trump talking about wanting to almost recalibrate the relationship with countries where there was a significant surplus going into the US may have an advantage to us. I'm not sure if many people sense this, but automotive components coming from the US into South Africa of close on 16 billion last year, and maybe about just over 4 billion rand going into the US. Why am I saying that? There's almost a point to be made that says, hey, US President Trump, actually you guys are benefiting from the trade relationship with the US. So I do think, yes, an element of concern. We don't want to lose that market. But the sector has been looking at diversification in terms of an export market. The US will always remain a key market. but there are other opportunities. I think one of the big opportunities, as you were referencing, that butterfly effect or strategy, would be growth in the African market, not just in a trade context, but also industrialization and greater vehicle production and component production or value chain activity in the African continent. So I do think there's still some water to flow under the bridge, but let's keep working to maintain that particular market and at the same time look at diversification.
So the tariff deadline of 30% will come into effect if nothing is agreed upon on Wednesday. Are you frustrated at maybe not having a clear direction, even at this point? Because AGOA has been up for discussion for a number of months, and it had to be discussed by the American Congress from last year even.
Yeah, I think the automotive sector in general does not benefit when there's uncertainty around. Given the kind of long-term contracts and investment planning that goes behind the scale of investment, of course, the uncertainty does not assist. Having said that, there's also some sense that immediate substitution of some of the products that go into the U.S. market, particularly from a component perspective, means that those contracts should continue in the short term. It does create a level of inflation at consumer level in the U.S. Having said that, we do know that there are also vehicles being exported into the U.S. And we're already starting to see the impact of that here in South Africa. There have been losses of volume production at certain plants across the country related to where there's exports into the US. And of course, the value chain takes the biggest impact of that. And we've already started to see some impact on production and jobs in the space.
You as a sector are in a bit of a double bind, if you like. It is the biggest innovation, or rather you guys are needing to innovate and pivot quite significantly, where the demand and the shift towards new energy vehicles has become top of mind. Plus there's the tariffs and the relations with your partners overseas that also needs to be clarified and sorted out. How do you manage this, and how important is what the minister mentioned in his budget today about 150% tax incentive for the industry for new energy vehicles? How helpful is that, and how do you guys manage this transition?
So I do think it's definitely a positive step to have an additional incentive that talks particularly towards new energy vehicle production. The Minister and the DTIC must be commended for continuing the focus on incentivizing a sector that has been at the heart of South Africa's industrial economy for a long time, and that's the auto sector. What I do think is really important is that in addition to that wider APDP framework, the new incentives coming in, we should be looking at particularly expanding our thought around the transition into new energy vehicles. There's definitely the battery opportunity, which many people are talking about. For me, I think should we be transitioning into that space, we've got to capture a greater part of the value chain, be working with partners in the East who've already locked in a lot of that battery production to see, okay, how are the technology partnerships, possible JVs, kind of aligned to the strength that South Africa and the wider African continent have in terms of the mineral resource base, and to develop some of those partnerships. Really great opportunity in terms of the green hydrogen space.